You know, the weather, the environment dictates whether you should build a shelter or if you need a fire. You're always going to need water. And if you're in a survival situation and you really know what you're doing and you have to build yourself a shelter, then you're in a pretty bad spot. That means you basically plan on being in one location for a while, and sometimes that's the best thing to do, but again, that depends on weather and also depends on the terrain. Most of the time, if you feel you need a shelter, you know, you could just find an already made shelter basically under a tree or through some bushes or what have you, and you don't actually have to build a shelter. Building shelters takes time. It takes material, it takes energy, and it takes calories. So in a sense, if you're building a shelter and you don't need to, that's counter survival. Pretty much the same thing with fire. You know, that's all on the weather conditions, and you know, you have a lot of your survival experts saying, well, you need to boil water so you can purify water. The fact of the matter is, if you carry the right stuff, you don't have to worry about building a fire to purify water. We've got a bunch of green cheek Amazon parrots flying by. Let me show you. There's plenty of ways to purify water without having to build a fire. Fires are dangerous. That's number one. Once you build one, it's kind of like, for me, an ex-girlfriend. You got to feed it all the time. You got to watch it all the time. Sometimes it's hard to look at, and if it gets out of control, you have to beat it down. So you want to stay away from fires as much as possible. As far as being in an environment where you're going to have to build a shelter, you better give yourself about 2 hours to be able to do that. Creating and inventing ways to survive goes well beyond fireballs and anti-venom strips, walking spears, and little solar panel bag that I have here that I made. It's charging all different sized types of batteries, so I can recharge my phone. If I have a GPS, I can recharge that. Cameras, whatever I have that's electrical. I made that solar bag water resistant and shock resistant, so I can take it and toss it and it's not going to cause any damage. It's not even an issue. Sorry, I had to turn the camera off because I need to take a leak. And again, you're not invited to that. The other quotation of popularity is fight or flight, and they generally forget to tell you about that third, and that third is play dead. If you got Mama Bear thumping your melon because she feels you're a danger to her kids, you're not going to be able to fight. Not a good idea to fight. So, you know, just kind of roll up and take the beating. You probably heard that, and that was the sound of a blackbird flying by, a huge blackbird. Now that fourth element that survival experts sometimes tend to, well, in fact, everyone I've ever talked to, and that is your clothing. You know, you have to have the right clothes for the environment, for the terrain, and for weather conditions, because you just don't know the potential of the weather changing. If you're out and you're not dressed accordingly for the environment, the conditions. Let's say you're out and it's going to start raining. You know, you can take bark and start pushing that inside your clothes. You can grab vegetation off the ground if you start getting cold. Start tucking that into your clothes. They say that when you're going to lay down, don't lay down directly on the ground because it sucks all your heat. Well, you can line the back of your clothing with all kinds of vegetation, and that's going to actually keep you off the ground. You don't need to be building a shelter. A lot of times there's not a whole hell of a lot of vegetation out there for you to start yanking and pulling and making a mattress and everything else. Well, you can just shove this stuff down inside your clothes. Now you're going to itch, and you have to be real careful that you're not going to grab vegetation that's got spiders or ants or ticks or what have you that's going to be your bed buddy. Right in the center of the trail, here's another spider web. I can go through here if need be to get on that trail and not touch that web. Now, again, spider webs, great for intelligence and counterintelligence. Little minor things that make a big difference, and that is if you're in a area like this or a swamp, mountains, and you're wearing a hat with a brim, why then you're an idiot, and I'll tell you why. You need to be able to see everything that's above you before you get there. You don't know if something's going to jump out of a tree or something's going to fall out of a tree and you end up getting hit on the noggin with a widowmaker. You want to be wearing a hat with a brim. You know, that's great for the desert. It's great for snowy areas or ice areas. And you either have snow or you have ice. You seldom have the two. And you need that to protect you from the elements. Out here in an area like this where you got so much vegetation, you don't necessarily need a hat with a brim. So in a sense, when you're out with a supposed survival expert and they're wearing their baseball cap or their floppy cap and then they got their brim on and they're walking around an area like this, you might want to scratch your head and do a rethink. Also, I should mention that the type of vegetation you shove into your clothes to keep you dry or warm, you know, you need to make sure that it's something you're not allergic to and that it's something that's not going to stick you when you grab it. The reason why I showed myself setting up a camera is the terrain out here, all these leaves and branches, they're all covered with thorns, and everything up here that can stick you or stab you will. And the fact that I wear knee pads, it's not a problem for me. I got a good pair of gloves, not going to bother my hand, and that's part of the reason why I dress the way I dress. In fact, the History Channel, History Made Every Day, has labeled me as an eccentric survivalist. And if you look up the word eccentric, that means strange or unconventional. And yeah, I'm very unconventional when it comes to survival. And if it's you that worked for the History Channel that wrote that, you go in there and ask for a raise, because so far you're the only one that's got it right.